You've always pictured the moment differently. $200,000 invested. Not saved, not sitting in a checking account, but out there, compounding, working while you sleep. You've seen the pictures. A guy from the trade posts a new truck, captions it blessed. Someone in the group chat drops a number like it costs him nothing to say it. So you built a version of the moment in your head. The day you cross it, you'll know. Your chest will loosen. The air in this van will feel different. That's the deal you made with yourself, somewhere between calls. Tonight, there's one more house waiting on the east side, heat still radiating up through the floor mats. 2:40 a.m. dead compressor, dark house, engine idling on a street you've been to a dozen times. You open the app. Thumb first, brain second. Habit. $201,340. Crossed. Nothing happens. No chest loosening. No different air. Just the AC unit humming somewhere behind the house, and your own breath. A little slower than it should be at this hour. You wait for the thing you promised yourself. It doesn't show up. Not close. 13 years of 12% off every invoice got you here. 13 years of nights just like this one. Heat still coming off the asphalt at 3 a.m. All of it lands on this exact screen, in this exact van, and looks like every other night you've had. No one's awake to tell. No one would believe you if you tried. Not in this van, not at 2:40 in the morning, not looking like this. Nothing here you could hold up and show someone. Just a screen, a number, and a compressor that still needs fixing before the sun does. You flip the phone face down. You grab your flashlight. Oh, so when does it actually change? By morning, you get an answer. Just not to that question. Mike from 3 streets over posts the truck first. Brand new, extended cab, wrapped in the company logo before the interior even smells right. The caption is short. Finally. 41 comments in an hour, half of them from guys you've bid against on the same jobs. You're still sitting in the same van. 158,000 miles on it, a crack in the dash from a wrench you dropped in year 3, and a check engine light you've learned to read like a mood ring. In this trade, the truck is the resume. Customers glance at what's parked in the driveway before they glance at the invoice. Mike's truck says something. Your $201,340 doesn't say anything to anyone, because nobody's looking at a screen in your pocket. You crossed a number last night that nobody in this group chat could touch, and somehow you're the one feeling like you're behind. You could post it too. Say nothing, obviously. You'd never say the number out loud. But you could upgrade, let the truck do the talking instead. For about 4 seconds, that actually sounds like relief. Then you do the thing you always do when a feeling gets loud. You turn it into math. Not the math anyone else does. You stopped converting the account into stuff a long time ago. Trucks, watches, a boat you'd use 4 times a year. You convert it into calls instead. $201,340 at 4% a year is roughly $8,000. Money the portfolio hands you without you climbing into an attic. $8,000 is about 18 emergency calls at $450 each. 18 calls is nearly every 3 a.m. run you took last July, the month you didn't see your own bed before sunrise more than half the nights in it. Same math works on weeks. A slow peak season used to mean picking up every job that came in, working through the one weekend you'd blocked off. $201,340 buys you 2 of those weekends back this year. 2 Saturdays you get to just not answer the phone, and the mortgage gets paid without you doing that math with your teeth clenched. So here's the number that actually means something to you. 18. That's 18 phone calls. Next summer, you get to let ring. 18 nights you get to just be asleep, and the world keeps spinning, and a client calls the next guy instead. It doesn't erase Mike's truck. It doesn't make the group chat quiet down. But for the first time since you opened that app in the dark, the number does something. Not out there, not in a driveway, just in the part of your head that's been running on 4 hours of sleep for 13 years. You didn't get here by accident, and you didn't get here fast either. There was a first year, before any of this made sense on a screen, before the number was big enough to convert into anything at all. Year 1, the account held $340. Not $340,000, $340. You remember the exact figure because you stared at it after a month where 3 jobs cancelled and the compressor on your own van needed replacing before you could afford it. Revenue that first year swung wild. A slow February with maybe 2 calls a week, Then a July where the phone didn't stop and you slept in the driver's seat between jobs more than you slept in your bed. The rule you set before you'd earned enough to make it hurt was simple: 12% off every invoice, no matter what the invoice said. $50 job, $6 goes in. $2,000 job, $240 goes in. 8 into a retirement account you couldn't touch for decades. 4 into a brokerage account you told yourself you also couldn't touch. Nobody agreed to witness this. There was no ceremony where you announced it. You just did it, invoice after invoice, for longer than most people keep a New Year's resolution. By year 5, the swings had a shape to them at least. Call it $50,000 in the leanest 12 months, more than double that in the best ones, and the percentage never asked which kind of year you were having before it took its cut. You didn't feel rich in year 5. You felt tired, and £30 different than you started, and better with money than anyone who's worked in an office their whole life without ever needing to be. Danny, 2 crews over, built his business the other way. Every good month bought something you could see. New gauges, a lifted truck, a second van before he'd paid off the first. He'd wave a receipt around the parts counter like a trophy. You'd nod, mean it a little, and go set up the same percentage transfer you always did, the one nobody at the parts counter would ever ask about because there was nothing to look at. Some Julys you out-earned him 3-1. Some Februaries you both just survived. The difference nobody could see. Yours kept moving after the invoice cleared. His stopped the second he swiped the card. One of those early years, the lean kind, lined up with a market drop bad enough to make the local news. The account was still small then, small enough that panicking about it should have felt almost silly. But watching a number you'd built one invoice at a time drop 20% overnight didn't feel silly at all. Your hands actually shook the first time you opened the app that week. You sat in the van outside a job, thumb hovering over the sell button, running the math on how much of it you'd actually lose if you just got out now. Then a call came in. Then another one. February doesn't wait for a market crash, and neither do customers with no heat. You never opened the app again that week. Not out of discipline, just because there wasn't a spare 10 minutes too. By the time you checked again, the number had already found its way back, quietly, the same way it had dropped. You didn't learn that lesson on purpose. You learned it by accident, and filed it away without knowing you'd need it again. After that, the system just ran. Every Tuesday, same transfer, same split. 8% into the SEP-IRA, 4% into the brokerage account, off the top of whatever came in that week, good or bad. You stopped thinking about it the way you stopped thinking about a seatbelt. Necessary, invisible, not something you announce to anyone in the cab with you. It's just what happens before the van starts moving. Somewhere in there, a second account started filling up separately. A business cushion, not the retirement money, not the brokerage money. 6 months of expenses sitting in something boring and liquid you could touch tomorrow if you had to. $4,000 a month for 6 months, done quietly enough that even you couldn't tell which Tuesday it finally hit $24,000. 2 different wallets, 2 different jobs. One for emergencies, one for never touching. You didn't know yet how much that distinction would matter. Nobody filmed any of this. There's no video of a self-employed guy setting up an automatic transfer in his phone between jobs. Nothing about it looks like anything, on the outside or on a screen. It's the same Tuesday, over and over, for 13 years, until one day an email from someone who's never met you decides it isn't nothing anymore. If that isolated routine feels familiar, type unseen below to recognize the work you never show anyone. Subscribing means the next story will just quietly surface in your feed, so you can let it come to you instead of having to search. The subject line doesn't try hard. Account tier update. Action not required. You almost swipe past it between the eggs and the second cup of coffee, the same reflex you use on every email that isn't a customer or a supplier. You open it anyway, mostly out of the same habit that made you check the balance in the first place. It's not exciting to read. Financial institution language rarely is. A paragraph about thresholds, a paragraph about eligibility, a line near the bottom that says your account has been reclassified into a preferred tier reserved for clients whose invested assets have crossed a certain point. The number in that sentence isn't the number on your screen last night. Not exactly, but it's the same neighborhood. The neighborhood of $200,000, stated the way institutions state things, as a policy, not a milestone. You read it twice. Not because it's complicated, because the first read didn't land anywhere. Somewhere, in a building you'll never see, in a system that doesn't know your name is attached to a van with 158,000 miles on it, you've been moved into a different category of person. New access, new tools, services that, as of last week, weren't offered to accounts like yours, and as of this morning, are. You skim the rest without really absorbing it. Dedicated advisor line, some conference in a city you've never been to, a portal that unlocks certain account types once you're inside it. None of it means anything yet. It's just words describing a version of your financial life that apparently exists now, running parallel to the one you're actually living, the one where the water heater in Unit 4B is the real emergency this morning. Nothing about the kitchen changes. The coffee's the same temperature. The eggs are still overcooked on one side because you always do that when you're on your phone instead of the stove. In 19 minutes, you need to be at a house on the north side, 94 degrees before 9 a.m. A customer who will judge you on how fast you diagnose the problem, not on what tier a spreadsheet somewhere just filed you under. You are, apparently, a different kind of client now. You are also, unmistakably, the same guy standing at his own stove trying not to burn breakfast before an 8 o'clock call. Both things are true at the same time, and neither one cancels the other out. You close the email. You finish the eggs. You wonder, for about as long as it takes to rinse a plate, what a preferred tier actually gets you, besides a sentence you'll never say out loud to anyone in this town. The answer, it turns out, finds you before the end of the week. You're at a call on a Thursday. A guy named Roger works in wealth management downtown, one of your regulars since his old unit finally gave out 2 summers ago. He's watching you check refrigerant levels when he says it, half as a joke, the way he always half jokes about money because he thinks it's rude to fully joke about it. You know you're getting close to needing an advisor instead of a guy like me recommending one, right? You laugh it off the way you always do. He doesn't know how close actually is. You don't tell him. But he keeps talking anyway, because that's what Roger does. Mentions a separately managed account some of his clients use once they're past a certain point. Mentions a group of a few trade guys in town who pooled money into a strip of retail units near the airport. Mentions it the way you'd mention a good taco spot, casually, assuming you'll do whatever you want with the information. You nod. You finish the job. You don't call the number on the card he hands you, and you don't pull up the portal from the email either. Not that night, not that week. It's not that you can't. That's the part that sits strange in your chest on the drive home. This isn't a door that's locked. It's a door you're choosing not to open yet. And there's a difference between those two things you've never had to think about before. Because until recently, every door in your financial life actually was locked, and choosing wasn't something that applied to you. The test comes during peak season, the way tests always do. Never when you have room for it. Third call of the night. 1:14 a.m. You're pulling out of a driveway on the west side when your phone buzzes against the cup holder, and it's not a customer, it's the group chat. Marcus goes first. Sold everything this morning, I'm out. Somebody else jumps in. Don't panic, sell. Don't panic, sell. Marcus, already gone. Too late for that advice, bro. A third guy piles on. Down 400 points before lunch, and it's not done. Then a screenshot from a guy you've never even met in person. His own account, bleeding red, no caption necessary. 11 guys you've done business with for a decade, and right now every single one of them is either bleeding or watching someone else bleed and calling it out loud. You pull up your own app at a red light. You know you shouldn't. $213,600 this morning. $179,400 now. 16% gone in the time it took you to fix 4 AC units. Your thumb finds the app's sell button before your brain finishes reading the number. Not decides to. Finds it. The way your foot finds the brake before you consciously register brake lights ahead of you. The body moving faster than the thought. You sit there long enough that the light goes green, then red again, and you never look up. Thumb hovering. Heart doing something it hasn't done since the compressor almost caught fire on a roof in July. This isn't the first time your hands have shaken over a red number. Years ago, the account was small enough that this exact feeling barely mattered in dollars. And you did nothing. Purely by accident, too busy surviving a slow month to open the app. There's no accident to save you tonight. The account is real now. The temptation is a decision you'd actually have to make, with your thumb, on purpose. Here's the part that doesn't make sense yet. Sitting at a red light with your heart going, your bills are covered. The business cushion. The $24,000. Untouched, boring, sitting exactly where it's supposed to sit. Could carry every expense you have for 6 months without this account moving a single dollar. Nothing about tonight threatens your rent, your gas, your kids' school shoes. Nothing you actually need is on fire. What's on fire is the group chat. Marcus selling. The guy predicting worse. 30 combined years of trade guy financial wisdom currently screaming that the sky is falling, and some old animal part of your brain believes a crowd faster than it believes a spreadsheet, faster than it believes its own bank balance. You put the phone down on the passenger seat. Screen still lit, sell button still one tap away. You drive to the next call instead. Not because you've made peace with the 16%. Because there's a customer with no air conditioning at 1:30 in the morning in July in Phoenix, and that emergency is real, and the one on your screen. You're starting to suspect. Might not be. You're still turning that thought over 2 days later when the text comes in from a number you don't recognize. Hi, this is Alicia with Desert Ridge Advisory. Noticed some volatility in your portfolio this week. Wanted to reach out about our managed protection service. 1% OM fee, and we handle the rebalancing so you don't have to watch it. You read it twice, the way you read the tier email twice, except this time you know exactly what to do with it. 1%. Every year. Forever. On whatever this account turns into, so somebody else can watch it for you. You already do that for free, at red lights. You do the math the way you always do the math. Not in dollars, in calls. 1% of where this account is headed is roughly $2,136 a year, about 4.7 emergency calls at $450 each. Not even 5 nights of the work you already know how to do, handed over every single year, indefinitely, to make sure you don't feel what you felt that night ever again. You feel it again anyway, just reading the math. But it settles this time, instead of climbing. Because the version of you sitting at that red light 2 nights ago didn't lose an hour of sleep you'd already banked. 16% on paper didn't touch the $24,000 that pays the mortgage if every customer in Phoenix cancels tomorrow. Nothing was actually threatened except a number that was never going to be spent this decade anyway. You text back a polite no thanks. You don't need someone else to watch the account. You built the watching in yourself for free, 13 years ago, 1 invoice at a time, and it's still working exactly the way you set it up to. You put the phone face down. Old habit, new reason. That new reason turns into an actual appointment 2 weeks later. The kind of thing you'd been meaning to do for years and never quite got around to, until a night like that one makes getting around to it feel less optional. Her name is Dana. Office above a strip mall dry cleaner, a plaque that says she specializes in self-employed clients, which is apparently a whole category of people who've been doing their taxes wrong in the exact same way you have. You sit down, expecting a 20-minute lecture and a folder to take home. Instead, for the first 90 seconds, you don't understand a single sentence she says. Not because she's talking over you, but because it's a language you never had a reason to learn. It doesn't feel like being talked down to. It feels closer to being handed the manual for a machine you've been running blind for 13 years. You've done your own taxes since year 1. Quarterly, whenever you remembered. An estimate you basically guessed at based on last year's number and a general feeling of dread. Dana pulls up your last 3 returns and doesn't say you did it wrong, exactly. She says something closer to, you did it like someone with a regular paycheck would do it. And that's the problem, because nothing about your income is regular. It's not that the old guess was wildly wrong. Some quarters it landed close. It's that close compounds into real money over 13 years in a way you never had the tools to actually see, not until someone puts your specific numbers side by side and lets you watch the gap add up. You watch her recalculate what your quarterly estimate should actually be, tied to what you're earning that specific quarter instead of last year's ghost. It's not a dramatic swing. It's a percentage point here, a bracket there. Small enough that you almost feel embarrassed for how long you let a rough guess run the show. Then she asks how much you're putting into the SEP-IRA. You tell her the number you've been putting in. The same percentage, off every invoice, for 13 years. She nods, then tells you what the actual ceiling is, tied to your income for the year, not a flat dollar figure you'd find printed anywhere simple. You've been contributing well under what you're allowed. Every year for over a decade, you left money on the table you didn't know existed. That one lands harder than the tax thing. 13 years of the exact same percentage, treated like a fixed law of physics, when it turns out the law only ever said minimum, not maximum. She keeps going. Which account should actually hold which kind of asset? Some things belong in the SEP, some belong in the brokerage, and you've had a few of them backwards the whole time, costing you nothing catastrophic, just quietly costing you something. And the 16% drop you rode out in the van a few weeks ago, that, too, could have cut your tax bill this year. You just had to know to ask. Instead, you just gritted your teeth and let it pass. She calls it harvesting the loss, says it the way you'd explain to a customer that of course you check the capacitor before replacing the whole unit. Obvious to her, invisible to you. It's a rule that only kicks in once your red numbers are big enough to be worth writing down. You leave with a list. Not a long list. 4 things, maybe 5, all doable before the end of the year. None of them requiring you to make more money, all of them requiring you to stop doing the same thing out of habit and start doing it on purpose. Driving back, you turn something over that doesn't have a name yet. You've spent 13 years assuming the rules were the rules. Same for everyone. Same for Mike with his truck, same for Danny at the parts counter, same for you. It turns out the game changes shape once the number gets big enough to be worth designing around. Nobody sends a notice for that. Nobody hands you the new rulebook. You have to go looking for it, and only once you're standing close enough to need it. You think about the version of you filing taxes alone at the kitchen table every April, quietly proud of doing it all without paying anyone to help. That pride wasn't wrong exactly. It just had a ceiling nobody told you about, same as the SEP-IRA did. The van radio's playing something you don't register. You're thinking about every year you did this alone, guessing in the dark, getting the broad strokes right by instinct, missing fine print nobody told you existed. Not because you weren't careful, but because careful was never going to be enough on its own. A few weeks after that, you're at the dealership on Bell Road for an oil change on the van. Routine, 40 minutes, nothing you'd normally think twice about. And there it is, in the showroom window. The same truck. The exact model Mike posted 8 months ago. The one that had you doing math before the day even started. You walk past it to the waiting room. Not around it, not with your head down avoiding it. Past it, the way you'd walk past a menu item you're not in the mood for. You register the price sticker without your pulse doing anything about it. Same chrome, same color options, same exact truck that used to sit in your chest like a debt you owed someone. Nothing. You wait for the old feeling to show up, out of habit more than hope, and it just doesn't arrive. 8 months ago, a photo of this exact truck kept you awake, doing math you didn't need to do, converting a stranger's purchase into evidence you were somehow behind. You remember the specific ache of it. Not envy exactly, more like a countdown clock starting somewhere in your chest. Standing 3 feet from the real thing, now there's no clock. Just a truck. Just a price. Just an ordinary day. The oil change guy. New hire. Doesn't know you yet. Glances at your van when he pulls it into the bay. You catch the look. The same look you used to imagine on every customer who parked next to something newer than what you drive. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. You know exactly what 158,000 miles and a cracked dash say to a stranger in this business. And for the first time, you let him think whatever he wants to think. You don't explain the number that isn't visible on the outside of this van. You don't need him to know it. The cost of staying quiet. The cost you've been paying since the day you crossed the line and told no one. Used to feel like something. Today, it doesn't cost you anything at all. Or maybe it costs exactly what it always did. You've just got enough put away now to stop feeling the withdrawal. That doesn't mean the wanting disappeared. A week later, you're sitting in the cab of your own van with 2 browser tabs open, one for the same truck, one for a diagnostic kit you've wanted since your 2nd year in the trade, the kind that would save you 40 minutes on every hard call instead of the guesswork you've been doing since you started. Combined, it's real money. Real enough that you actually get quotes this time, not just daydreams. A specific number for the truck, a specific number for the kit, both written down instead of just felt. You don't buy either one. But you don't close the tabs and pretend you don't want them, either. That's the old move, the one where desire gets shoved down until it turns into something uglier later. Instead, you do something that feels almost silly when you type it out. You make a folder. You name it when, not if, bored, which isn't quite right, so you rename it when it's needed, not when I want it, before you can talk yourself out of bothering. Both quotes go in the folder. A note under each one. Revisit after tax season. Revisit if the kit pays for itself in saved hours within a year. Not never. Not now. It's a small, almost embarrassing piece of paperwork for a feeling this large. But naming it does something that just wanting it never did. It turns a craving into a line item, something with a date attached instead of a mood you're at the mercy of. You're not the guy denying himself the truck. You're the guy who decided, on your own terms, what it would cost you in hours of sleep to say yes right now, and chose to keep those hours instead. You close the laptop. Somewhere behind you, the account keeps doing what it's always done, without needing you to watch it do it. No applause for that either. There never was going to be. Somewhere around the 1 year mark, you do a piece of math you don't usually bother with. The portfolio grew by roughly $26,660 this year, without you touching it once. Just that same Tuesday transfer, week after week. That's close to what an entire peak season standing on other people's roofs would have paid you. Except this year, it happened while you slept, while you argued with a compressor, while you did literally anything else. The system doesn't need you to push harder anymore. It just needs you to stay out of the way, which turns out to be the actual skill the whole time. Not earning more, not sacrificing more, just staying out of the way. Oh, so the question stops being how much is enough. You crossed that line already, months ago, and it didn't feel like anything, which was the whole point. What's sitting in its place now is stranger, and it doesn't come with a dollar amount. What exactly are you trading all those 3 a.m. calls for, once you're not trading them for survival anymore? That question rides shotgun the whole drive home. Past sunrise, past the gas station where you usually grab coffee, past the turn you could take on autopilot with your eyes shut. You don't answer it. You're not sure yet what would even count as an answer, or if it's the kind of question you answer once and move past. You pull into the driveway, kill the engine, and just sit there a minute longer than the moment actually requires. No phone out, no app open, nothing left to check. Just you, a quiet street, and a question that isn't going anywhere tonight.